أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وخاتم النبيين أما بعد فقد قال الله تعالى وتبارك في كتاب المبين وهو أصدق القائلين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل إن صلاتي ونسكي ومحياي ومماتي لله رب العالمين. Brothers and sisters watching this program, welcome to this program named Faith Forum on Hidayat TV. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, God Almighty, says, O my Prophet, tell them that all their prayers, all their ibadah, the worship, their life and their death, everything is for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for God Almighty. That is to say, from cradle to grave, there is a path charted out for us. The path shown by God Almighty, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is the path He wishes all to be. And if we take that path, that very route, that very life is ibadah, is worship. It is not just prostrating on the musalla before God Almighty, is just ibadah. Today, in this world, when we look in this great modern, advanced, scientifically unimaginable world, when we look around, we see the great minds that have created beautiful things, yet we see the value of human life is getting low and low and low in the eyes of many people. To discuss that in this great and modern world, can there be peace? Can we live in peace? Can we let others live in peace as we want to live in peace ourselves? To discuss this, I have a very knowledgeable, responsible person who has spent a lot of time in the field and arena of theology and philosophy, a person who is a minister in his church. Our most reverend is Simon Ramsey. Simon, good evening to you.
Good evening. Thank you for having me here.
And thank you for coming. Simon, to introduce you, Simon is a minister in the Unitarian Church. He has been interested in religion, but religion which leads to peace. And therefore, he has also been the chairperson of the Association of Religious Freedom, and also the Faith Committee Foundation?
Faith's Connected
Faith Foundation.
Yeah.
With such connections, to say that religion is based on freedom. Religion actually stands on the pillars of freedom. And if there is faith and there is freedom, then there should be free society, free life and air to breathe for all of us on this planet. Sadly, it doesn't happen. Sadly, a lot of causes in the world is on the name of religion, just in the adverse way. Simon, with all your interests, with all your devotion of time and efforts to bring a chain of communication between different religions and faiths. But when you talk to the people who are in the churches, who are in the synagogues, who are in the mosques, who are in the temples, when you talk to them, they all talk about peace. But it is through the mosques, it is through the churches, it is through the synagogues, it is through the temples. People come out after listening to the sermons, etc., and their interpretation of religion leads to not pamphlets and banners of peace, but guns and bullets and bombs. Why is that?
In my in my experience, if we take communities that have been warring for a certain amount of time over particular issues, faith seems to be more or less excluded from their endeavours. It becomes very personalised, so people are more at war and exhibit a lack of peace between one another simply because of the personal factor. My brother was killed, or my mother was killed, or something's happened to them, and so then it's very difficult for people to get over this animosity in order to see the other person. One of the greatest things, I think, which means that we cannot find peace between communities often, is that because of the entrenched views of particular communities, there becomes distance there. And once there's distance there, then that's a hotbed for fear to grow. And when fear then grows, we can then see that quite easily slip and slide into physical violence at its worst, and really mental violence at its least. So the job of people like the International Association of Religious Freedom and indeed the Faiths Connected Foundation are to remove that distance from people. The Faiths Connected Foundation was set up on one basic principle, and that was a principle that I had discovered when I was just picking my children up from school. I call it the interfaith of the school gate. I'm stood there with lots of other parents, all from different religions, all with one common purpose: to make sure our children have the best education, make sure that they are in a loving and secure family. That's our common interest, and it's through that open dialogue from that common interest that bridges then can start to be made between different faiths. The distance and therefore the fear is then diminished. So the Faiths Connected Foundation was started to be a very practical solution to these problems, to bring people of different faiths, different cultures together for one particular purpose, whether that means cleaning the rubbish out of a park, whether it means that young people, and this was a scheme that we had going, young people recording and making a documentary of their own faith and then sharing it with other young people of their age group. Whether it's any of these initiatives, it's by coming to know each other that we can then start to find peace amongst each other.
Okay, let me put it to you. There are different denominations, like in our faith, in your faith, there are different denominations. Unitarian Church, right? It too must be saying, God made us all to live as brothers in peace.
Absolutely.
Isn't it? If we look at, for example, in the business that you have connections with, and your partners there, they are of, for example, Lebanese origin.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there, it's a unique country, and I've been, even just this year, I've been to Beirut. There are Christian, Muslims, Druze, amongst the Muslims, then there are Shias and Sunnis, and amongst the Christians there are denominations. It's a very unique place where there was a time those very people had existed for centuries and centuries together. There's an element of what you call Orthodox Church there. Much before even Islam came into being there. Then there are other churches. Even the church people amongst themselves, they fight, not verbally, but with guns. Then you have got the Druze and the Muslims again, they fight amongst themselves. I had the unique opportunity to sit at a dining table with the Orthodox Syrian Church minister. There was a mullah from a Shia faith and a mullah from the Sunni faith, and there was a Druze person. He was not from the church, but they all talked beautiful languages of peace. And I asked them, it's all right to sit at table and talk, but it is the walkways, the footpaths, the little alleyways where truth actually spills out onto the streets. Just last week, before an embassy, about more than 40 people were injured and many killed. And yet, we can't control these rioting mobs. You say two words, fear and ignorance, leading to dogma and intolerance. Could you explain what this dogma and intolerance, how does it breed and how does it mushroom?
Well, most people in my experience are scared of the unknown. When something is known, there's no fear there. When we put our own individual ideas up above the compassion for our brothers and sisters, because we, like yourselves, believe that we all came from Adam. So when we say brother or sister, no matter from what religion, what race, what background, we actually mean brother or sister. We are connected. We are fundamentally connected. When people move the ideas of separation aside and focus on the connectedness, then problems start to dissolve. I know certainly that when we talk about there being an absence of peace, and that's what it is. Peace, as far as I'm concerned, is a very tangible, living power. It is part and parcel of God that creation is imbued with. So when we talk about an absence of peace, what effectively we're talking about, in my mind, is an absence of God. Because we have put our own ideas, our own sect ideas over and above the common good, the base that we should be working from, and that is that God is one and that humanity is also one. The trouble I see is that often when we have dogma, it becomes rigid, it becomes inflexible, and so we want a weak mind, a weak heart, somebody that hasn't addressed their own problems, that hides behind the words of religion, rather than try to tease out the full meaning contained therein. When someone does that, then what they're doing is they're separating themselves from themselves, from the highest part of themselves. But then they also have a tendency to use religion to justify their own selfish ends. If we look back into the history of Christianity, I think you were talking earlier about the value of human life. This is something that I've been incredibly shocked with. As you know, I own a bakery, a Lebanese bakery in Borsal Heath, with my Shia Muslim business partner. There's no problem between a Unitarian Christian and a Shia Muslim owning a business together, all that does in and through our day-to-day workings is I find out a little bit about his perspective, which gives me an insight into my own perspective. I understand the world around me and indeed myself a little bit more. There is nothing to fear from that. And I've seen that in my day-to-day business, but I've also seen the incredible turmoil that goes on with my business partner and his family when there is a bomb, say, in Beirut like there was. And our thoughts and prayers are with all those people there now. I've seen the turmoil that causes in a family which is here, which came over here in 2006 with the Israeli incursion into South Lebanon to escape the fighting. They're still touched by it because they don't know what family member is going to be injured.
So the scars are still left in
the scars are still there. The scars are still there. But these are wonderful, open-hearted human beings. They don't hold grudges against the warring factions. They just want to go about their life as normal people, living and working in peace with their brothers and sisters.
Simon, if we look at the life of yours, I mean by yours, I mean ours as well.
Yeah.
Hazrat Isa al-Islam,
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Right? I don't see him going to the wedding halls and the banquets. I see him going where the others wouldn't go.
Yes,
I see him going to heal the lepers.
Yeah.
I go and see where the others wouldn't like to go.
Yeah.
I go and see where they are ill and who have lost hope, to touch them and to pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to God Almighty, to heal them. I don't see him going to the super rich places to see that, but where the human life is looking to God, to Allah for help. And Allah doesn't come down on a parachute to help them, but He expects us, the others who have got the health or the wealth or the might or the power to share. And it is the share of the bread of Hazrat Isa al-Islam, Jesus, which we read so about. But when we look at the lives of the people, right, we see we don't want to share.
No.
We want it, if it is your bakery, I want to enter the bakery and earn all the breads for myself. Right? Why you have learnt and been through many years study of theology and philosophy. What's the thought behind it that we want to hold on to everything, while the ayat, the verse that I recited from the Holy Book Quran says, our life, everything, our prayers, our work, everything is for God.
I think a human being works on several distinct levels. We have at our very core, because we're a human animal at first, we have our very core this need to survive. But the thing is that often, especially within our society, that says you can have this and you can have this, and creating aspirations which aren't reasonable, and are certainly not reasonable for everybody to have. The thing that happens is this becomes blown up and out of control. It takes over. So then we have this famous phrase, it becomes a dog-eat-dog world, where you're looking to get above your brother and sister. If you've got to tread on their head to get up higher, then that's what you'll do. But it's a false economy. It's a false economy, because every time we cut our brothers and sisters off, we're impoverishing ourselves, making ourselves more distant from the one from which we came, more distant from our Creator, more distant from our brothers and sisters, more isolated, less happy. And this has like a negative snowball effect, where we continue. We want more and more and more and more. I'm sure you remember the story of Alexander the Great. He'd conquered most of the civilized world. The richest man in the earth at that time had everything at his disposal according to the times. He became sick, so he sends off his most learned scholars and doctors to go and find a cure. They come back and they say, we have nothing. And so he asks his closest advisor, this is what I want. When I finally die, I want you to put me on a stretcher and walk me through the streets of the city, cover my body and leave my hands out of the stretcher open so people can see that even though I had the most wealth and everything, I left this earth empty-handed. And I think that people want to try and create a bubble of security around themselves. They want to imagine that they are going to be forever, or at the very least not consider that one day they too will die and they too will leave here with only the deeds that they have done, the good that they have done, or the evil that they've done to their brothers and sisters. So we work on many different levels. We have a very animalistic side that is concerned with the lack of, concerned with, I've got to get this in case it runs out, in case I'm not going to be able to provide what I need for myself. And then you have the higher elements of the human being also, the reasoning faculty, the heart. Now, quite often the survival overtakes the others. If we can only get people to engage with the heart and the mind, to meet with one another, then a lot of this distance, a lot of this fear, a lot of this needing to manipulate life to get on top of your brother and sister is diminished. There is no need.
But then all this want, I wish, I must have, right, leads to the element of greed.
Yes, absolutely.
Right? And greed leads to jealousy. Jealousy leads to animosity. Animosity leads to hatred. This element of hatred gives one the ego factor. I must be right. I must have it. And the other must be wrong. Others may not. Then Simon, why is it in this culture, within inverted comma, cultured word, I was reading just in Europe, millions, not 100, millions of tons of food go waste into right in the garbage bags and containers. Whilst a fair chunk of this world goes starving.
I think this is what you get when you've got a system that's based upon that's based upon something that's man-made. The system that we're in, take Tesco's for example, which was the big revelation of how many millions of pounds worth of food that they have to throw away. That company is only caring about the money that they make for their shareholders. It's not considering the human aspect. So money over humans, money over people. That's not meaning to say that you can't have a business in this world that has compassion at full capacity. As everything that goes into the food bank goes out. People are in desperate need, and I would like to see the compassionate side of business starting to think, well, hang on a minute, we've got this much waste every day. Just take Birmingham, for example. We've got this much waste every day. There is this homeless hostel, that homeless hostel, this food bank. Things could be arranged if they had the will to do it. I think maybe with the adverse publicity that there may be more of a will to do it now. But it doesn't seem to be moving fast. It doesn't seem to be moving fast. It's all about how much can be made and trimming down the cost of making the money as well.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, God Almighty, through the miracles, or whether it's Moses, whether it's Jesus, whether it's our Prophet, Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, show that it is sharing that He loves. Because He gave us our palm, and there is only a small capacity which we can have.
Yeah.
Okay, and if we look at Jesus breaking loaf of bread, it's a symbolic gesture.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And we read about Hazrat Ali alayhi salam, Ali, the great successor of our great Prophet, carrying bags of bread at night on his back to share with the homeless and the needy.
Yeah.
I think what we will do is, Simon, we'll take a break and come back to hopefully back to this service, and we can talk about your Lebanese bread and bakery.
Oh, I should have brought you some samples.
Brothers and sisters, welcome back to this program of Faith Forum. Today I have got with me Reverend Simon Ramsey from the Unitarian Church. The topic we are talking about is, can we in this modern day and age, in this world, live in peace? Can our children go into the playgrounds and play with the children of other faiths, other religion, other cultures, speaking different languages, and yet, like all children do, play together? But these very children, when they leave their playgrounds and they become older, young men, get on with their lives, the very children they played with, they hate their language, their culture, their color. Why is that? In Quran, in Surah Mu'minun, ayat verse 115, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, do you think that I created it without any purpose? Don't you know, don't you realize that one day you have to return back to me, come back to me, be accountable for what you did, what I sent you for? It is this account keeping of our life from Adam, Hazrat Adam alayhi salam, whether it's Moses, Musa alayhi salam, Jesus, Hazrat Isa alayhi salam, Abraham, Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam, and our Prophet, they all give us the same message for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Work with peace, because I created you for the purpose of living together as brothers. Islam does not like hermits or people who go into the caves and just pray to Allah. Islam wants people in the community. Like our young brother here, Simon Ramsey, he lives a normal life, which I call normal life, like any other citizen in Birmingham. He's a priest of a church denomination. He's in a business with his partner, a Muslim from Lebanon, from different background, different religion, different culture. And if these two guys can get on together, why can't we, Simon? These very people, and I have been to Lebanon, tasted their food and recipes, wonderful. Right? When I see what is happening in Syria, a Muslim brother opening the chest of another Muslim brother, dead Muslim brother, taking his heart out and chewing it and proudly presenting it on YouTube, on the television.
Yeah.
you wouldn't do that, or I don't think I would do that, to my cat or my dog, leave alone to human being.
Yeah.
How can Simon, brother Simon, can we stoop so low, undignified, unthinkable way of treating human beings like that?
I think firstly there's a political motivation to do these things, because to commit such atrocious acts, and I've also seen quite a lot of things on YouTube, incredibly violent acts against somebody that prays the same, that believes in the same God, that believes in the same prophet. I've seen this, also myself. So I think there's a political aspect of it. I think also that there is a certain aspect of powerlessness. These are the people that commit these. They are lacking in some way in their heart. They don't seem to be able to see beyond their own thoughts, beyond their own meta-narrative of the world, to the suffering, to the plight of other people. There's a Jewish theologian called Hannah Arendt. She said that all violence comes from a sense of powerlessness. And this is what I see. They may be hurting other people. They may exert physical power at these times. But actually, what we're seeing are beings that are powerless, without any authority, without any power, that they have to do such explicit acts to their brothers and sisters. So I think that these things come down to a sense of powerlessness. And when we feel powerless, we will, stoop to great depths to try and find some semblance of control over our lives. And we all know that power only comes from God. That is the only power. If we have any power in our lives, it is imbued to us by God. And so I think these horrendous acts that are committed by people, it's done in falsehood. It's done in misapprehension of the reality of the creation that we live in. It's done in a misunderstanding of the one that created us.
If we look at the life of Hazrat Isa Jesus, you talk about power. The governor of Rome, who sat on the throne, overseeing Samaria and Judea and all the valleys and the lands around. Jesus stood for what is right and did not submit himself to the power brokers among the priests and the society at that time, and stood his ground and had to make a bold decision that it is his life that he will sacrifice, but not down to the corrupt regime of the time, the bullies of the time, the money laundering systems that they had at that time, who sat on the corridors of the temple with the money lending schemes. He stood against all of them.
Absolutely.
Right? And he did not say, he said, you can take my life, but I will not submit myself to your corrupt world, because it is the corruption of this world that I have come to cleanse.
Yes.
Is it right?
That is right,
To these corrupt systems, this tyranny and bullying of the poor and the downtrodden, I will give my life, I will give life of my sacrifice, the lives of my associates, Suhaba, the life of my children, even an infant, but I will not. The morality that I see, the way Jesus sacrificed his life, I know in your religion, he went on to the cross. For us, we say that Allah saved his beloved prophet and took him to the heaven. But still, we believe that he stood his ground.
Absolutely.
And so did Imam Hussain alayhi salam stood his ground against the tyranny and the terror, the government-sponsored terrorism of that time. The duty of you, Simon, as a minister, and me sitting here, and both of us sitting here, talking to this world through the communication of Hidayat TV. Right? I would like to say, what message would you like to give to the world? Forget it, whether it's a Muslim listening, Christian listening, non-believers listening, anyone listening, for the sake of humanity. What message should we have for them in this modern world?
Be enthused seekers after truth. Never stop trying to unveil the nature of reality that you live in. And we see Imam Hussein and Jesus being examples of that for us. Because you may be able to kill the body or punish the body or torture the body,
Subhanallah,
but you can't kill the truth. The truth is eternal, always. So be seekers after truth. Bring your heart to bear on things. If you can bear in your deepest heart to see another one suffering, to see another one as alien from yourself, then I would suggest that maybe you are heading just slightly off course. Be seekers after truth. We're all creatures in the make. None of us are perfect. We all make mistakes. We all lead our life as best we can. Be seekers after truth and have compassion at the center of your actions between yourself and the rest of the world.
I do not know whether Simon is singing the song from my book or his book, but it is the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, God Almighty's book, and that hymn, that song, that's hamd, that's the worship of Allah, is actually common in all our faiths, especially our Abrahamic faiths. Can we all not take that shape, quickly snatch it from Simon, and Simon from my hand, and say, good, they are similar, they are actually mirror image of each other. And all the prophets that Allah sent, God sent to guide us, are actually mirror image of each other. We are mirror image of each other. And our religion, Islam, says, if the person next to you is not your brother by religion, by faith, at least he is your brother in humanitarian terms.
Absolutely.
I think the question we have got on the screen today, can we live in peace? Simon, I think, brother, there is an opportunity, there is a chance, there's a wonderful sight that we can see. Yes, peace is attainable, peace is reachable, peace is something which can really grasp and hold to. It is the desire and the wish to go and get it. If we desire something and it is on the top of the mountain, Simon, will we not want to go and get it?
We must work for it. We must work for it. Nothing is easy gained in this life. Everything must be worked for. There needs to be a necessary effort. But I think that we can. And what we have to do through forums such as these, where we are talking to hundreds of thousands of people around the world, what we're saying to them is, well, look, we have the bad news stories. We hear the atrocities. We can't possibly hear all the good things that happen, because the good far outweighs the bad still in this world. the kind word, the gesture, the people taking food round to an elderly neighbour, which I know that happens in just around the corner from here in Small Heath. There's a woman in my congregation, she's lived in the same house ever since she was a young girl, and she has Muslim neighbours, and they come round to her and they give her food, make sure that she's taken care of. Let us try and take an example from that. We can all do our best in our own little way. We may only be one, we may only feel that we are one, but we are still one, and we can still make a difference. Maybe not in the world at large, but in our own small way. And if enough do it in our own small way, it's not long before the whole world becomes full of this positivity.
Yes, brothers and sisters, we can live in peace. It may look a very tall mountain to climb, but step by step we can get there. To give you a good example, I was just going through the internet and I read a little story of a man who was born, and because of medical reasons, both his legs were amputated right from the hip. And as he grew up, he says, no, God, Allah has taken something away from me, but Allah, God is fair and Allah is just. And if He is just, if He has taken something away from me, He must have given me something extra somewhere else.
Yeah.
If we look at our lives, there's something we may be deprived of. Look somewhere that God has given you something extra, but you didn't account for. And this young man grows up, and when he grows up, he says, I want to climb Kilimanjaro, the tallest mountain in Africa. People said, okay, we will help you. He says, no, Allah has not given me legs, but He has given me strong arms. And believe me, I looked at the video. With his hands, he climbed without assistance to the top of the tallest mountain in Africa, the Kilimanjaro. Life of ours is like that. If we want peace, peace for myself, peace for our neighbors, peace for our own children. It may look like a mountain today, but believe me, as Simon says, if we have the desire, the wish, the grit, the determination, we shall conquer.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And Simon, if we can conquer, then we've got to, like the mountaineers, they climb. They had tied their ropes from one to the other. They don't go in isolation.
Yeah.
What and how can we climb that mountain bound together?
We come back almost in full circle here, don't we?
Yes.
To where we are actively becoming involved, becoming friendly people to those people that don't believe everything that we believe, that don't believe everything that we see the world as.
Brothers and sisters, we have come to the end of the time. And this determination, this ambition to stand the ground for righteousness, for selfless devotion to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we see in the field of Karbala and the sacrifice of the 72 who gave up everything in the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Thank you very much for watching this program. Inshallah, we shall see you again same time next week. Till then, Khuda Hafiz.